Gormagat, Lascion Corla. I'd just like to initially echo the sentiments of Deputy Oireachtas in relation to the establishment of the Department of Further and Higher Education. I think it's given a focus, particularly on apprenticeships that wasn't there heretofore. So I think that's to be welcomed. Initially, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're heading into a phase where the government is going to be rolling out the largest retrofitting scheme in the history of the state. Much in the construction, retrofitting of houses, insulation and so on. I think it's important that we acknowledge the importance that apprentices are going to have in the very near future. And I suppose I'm as guilty as anybody else in assuming that when we're talking about apprentices, we're always talking about plumbers, electricians and the traditional trade and craft apprenticeships. But there's a lot more to apprenticeships than that in terms of accounting, business related courses and so on. What I would like to see is that, having spent 15 years teaching in a vocational school, I would like to see greater emphasis, and perhaps it's something, Minister, that you and your department can do in terms of engaging with students, at second level, and encourage them as best as you can to at least consider an apprenticeship for their own further education. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that apprenticeships are third level education, and so frequently do we see them dismissed as something that could be done in case you miss out on some other type of course or some other type of job that you might have had your sights set on. But it's far more than that, and we need to acknowledge that, I think, particularly at second level. So that snobbery or that element of apprenticeships are for people that didn't make the cut. I think the days of that are gone and long may continue. I think we need to acknowledge what the government has done so far, and 34 million has been invested in the budget last year to develop new programmes. And I know that 8 programmes were launched in 2020 and 2021. But that said, I would like to see greater emphasis on apprenticeships covering the areas of online safety, cyber security, and things in the IT sector. Given the prevalence of cyber terrorism and scams and online scams that people are falling victim to, I think it's a space that we need to really encourage the promotion and growth of. I'd also just like to maybe raise the issue of gender imbalance that's there in the apprenticeship model. Recently we had the president of MTU before us at the Education Committee, and he openly acknowledged that they're really struggling to get women into traditional apprenticeships, and that's still an ongoing issue that they're having. And I believe that out of the 24,000 apprenticeship population that we currently have nationally, only 1,500 of them are females. So there's obviously clearly work to do here and ground to make up in this space. I would acknowledge that the government has made funding available for female participation, and there's grants there to encourage employers. I believe there's a grant of over €2,500 to encourage employers to take on females, particularly in trades that are dominated mostly by males. So that must be flagged as well and appreciated. And finally, I'd just like to mention maybe the issue of capacity, because we're talking about getting greater numbers of apprentices into the system and the difficulty on the ground. And again, we would have heard about this at Education Committee from various TUs over the last number of months, and I can speak particularly about maybe MTU in Cork, where over the years they've been oversubscribed. They've been, I suppose, trying to accommodate too many people on a fairly restricted site in an outdated building, and I believe that we need to get the right investment in that capital infrastructure to ensure that we can take the volumes of apprenticeships and students that we're talking about needing. So. The last comment actually would just be in relation to the National Training Fund, the NTF, and I know that we're talking about the future of funding in higher education, and I think we have to have serious consideration given as to how we're going to meet the shortfall. I think it's approximately 300 million over the next few years, and I suppose that maybe, Minister, you could address in your closing statements in relation to the NTF. Are employers likely to see some kind of an increase in their NTF, in their levy to the NTF into the future? Gormagat.